All right, Rockers. Turbo here with you guys. And it's been a while since we did some interviews. Long overdue to have them return. And I got an app from my phone to use as we bring interviews back until I get my computer that does the interviews lined up and rolling. So if you hear a little beep, that is the beep. But what more importantly we want you to hear is my guest, a good friend of mine, someone we haven't heard from in a while because, boy, he's been busy. He's in Cosmic Wool. He's in Texas Hippie Coalition. And his first band, Anti Mortem, is coming back. Yes, joining me by phone right now, Nevada Romo. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you, dude?
I am doing very well. Good to talk to you, man. It's been too long, but hey, for good reason, man. You've been busy.
Yeah, it's I'll tell you what, ever since I don't know, like 2014, 2013, 2012, somewhere in there, I feel like I've been on the road for like 6 years or something like that. But yeah, me and Rado jumped in with Texas Hippie Coalition, and we've been on the road for like, good Lord, 2 years or so. I mean, don't get me wrong, we come home for breaks here and there, but we just got done doing a record in LA for the last month and a half, so I've been living in LA, so I'm happy to be back in Oklahoma. I could say that.
Well, I'm glad to hear things have been busy. Yeah, matter of fact, if I remember right, the last time I spoke with you and with Laredo, I had both of you guys on. You guys had just gotten everyone introduced to Cosmic Wool, and then it was that weekend that you texted me and you said, don't tell nobody, but I'm joining Texas Hippie Coalition, and I remember freaking out. What's it been like for you as now a full-on member of THC?
Oh man, it's been great, dude. I mean, the people they have that follow them kind of are reminiscent of the Deadheads from the Grateful Dead, and so I mean, like, every time we show up in a different town, there's always familiar faces I know really well that show up with food and all kinds of stuff and moonshine and all that. So and then getting to write this record with them, we've got a few songs every night we play that I've helped write and stuff. So, it's been, and I mean, man, this last year we played with Ozzy twice. I mean, we played all the big festivals, Welcome to Rockville and, Carolina Rebellion and all that stuff. And, I've got to do some big stuff with that band. So it has been a roller coaster. It's a lot like playing with Motley Crue, I would imagine would be like, I mean? Only the difference is you have what's his name? Charlie Daniels meets I don't know, Ozzy, in one person up on stage. So, he's a character. He's fun to deal with, and the shows are fun. So I definitely enjoy playing with Texas Hippie Coalition. And then having Rado in now has been a blast. So, we get to go out and just kind of, it's nice with THC because that thing is kind of already going and is what it is. And so we can jump in and just kind of, just ride the wave and not have to, do too much of the planning or that kind of stuff with that group. We get to kind of, just enjoy getting on stage, playing, and, just kind of staying oblivious to all the hard work Rich is putting in on the back end, on the paperwork and stuff and all the calls. So it's been a blast. I can say I've enjoyed it.
Well, that's good to hear, man. As I said, I was thrilled when you told me about that, and unfortunately I missed you guys when you came through the area earlier this year, but I do know people that went to that show. They had a great time. Texas Hippie always puts on a great show, and I'm glad to see you guys. You're getting out there in a big way, because, what we got to talk about, as much as I love THC, and as much as I love what you and Radio do with Cosmic Wool, a lot of people might have forgotten or are unaware, because it's been so many years, that you guys started with Anti Mortem a couple of years back, more than a couple of years, And that album, New Southern, and the band was making waves, making a name, and then, well, things went south. Before we get into the return, I just want you to fill everyone in on what happened for those that maybe missed what happened when Anti Mortem ended so abruptly years ago.
Oh man, I don't think I've been asked that question actually. It's funny that you say that because this is probably only like the second interview I've done for this band since we broke up. So I haven't even really thought much about that question, but as far as what we would want to put out, obviously I want to make sure that I don't offend anybody with what I say or any of that, but I will do my best to be as honest as I can.
Sure.
I will say that for a long time, we started out the group at we had to be Rado was 11, I was 13 or something like that. And then we got signed pretty quickly. We had inked a deal with Roadrunner at 17 or 18. And then we were in LA doing a record, and then the Roadrunner deal didn't really work out as well as we thought it would have, and we ended up going Nuclear Blast. And, in the background the whole time, you got to realize, these were kids that are, by the time I was I'd say, I guess we started that band when I was 12 or so, actually. So by the time I was in my 20s, we were close to encountering 10 years of being a band, and we had a lot of issues internally with the group that maybe a lot of people wouldn't be experiencing until, maybe they were in their 30s or so, and we were experiencing, success, but hardship in the same way that, any band today is not really making the kind of money that the industry was providing in the 90s or, 80s and 70s. So I would say due to us being really young, us having a lot on our plates, being on the road, relentlessly for probably 2 to 3 years. After we got, from the time that we'd gotten that deal, got the record out, or actually before, probably about a year and a half before the record came out, we toured without a record. We played with everybody from Lacuna Coil, the Machine Head, Monster Magnet, and, they were really good tours. And that initial group, that wasn't the first lineup either. That was probably, we'd had a different drummer, but the four of us, me, Corey, Rado, and Zane, had all been in the band for a long time. But we had a bass player before that, and we'd been a four-piece with just one guitar player at one point. So I would say that due to a long period of time of being together, having, a friendship based in being kids, and then, having all this success in our plates, but at the same time, the difficulty of having to maintain it, it was really tough. And then I would say, and I want to say this carefully, but, we had forces outside of us that were, really kind of moving the way things were going. And I don't necessarily just mean the label either. When you get kids involved, you have to deal with their parents sometimes. And that can be difficult, you know what I mean? Because, when as the band was aging and growing, it wasn't the easiest thing dealing with the situation in that way. Not to say that, we hadn't benefited from that for a long time, but, when you get to the point where you're trying to manage money and all these different things and stuff, we had, it was very interesting that 2014 to 2012 to 2014 was a pretty interesting time in my life, I will say. And so long story short, we were out on tour with the Butcher Babies and on our way to go do Knot Fest, and then we had a European tour with King and Lion Eyes the next year, or not next year, but that next week. And we were parked next to Alter Bridge, I want to say, and we sounded like lunatics for probably, God, it had to be 6 hours. We just fought, freaked out, fist fought, you name it. Everybody just lose their minds. And then we all just decided to call it in San Antonio, I believe. Everybody just kind of, me and Zane had tried to say, hey, let's keep this going and just get everything loaded out tonight, and we'll get it into the place and just do the gig. And, but we just decided to disband pretty much over the matter. We were all pretty burnt, and I think everybody had, I think everybody just had their ways that they wanted to see the band go. And then at that point, I think everybody just kind of it was I always felt like Anti Mortem was going to be the mother band of a few bands, just because everybody had so much vision in it. And like I said, I don't say that to knock anybody else in the group. Everybody in that lineup was amazing and really talented. But when you just have so many people trying to lead at the same time, it can be really difficult. And, you know,
yeah, I mean, everyone, like you said, when there's a lot of talent there and everyone wants to get their vision heard, especially when at the time for you guys were kind of being referred to as like the next Pantera. So there was a lot of pressure for you guys not only to continue to succeed, but to have the second album be just as good.
Oh, yeah. You know, I mean, honestly, I will say, let me put it this way. There was never a thought for us of a second album. I mean, we obviously never thought about breaking up, but we broke up like probably a year after not even a year after the record came out in April, and we broke up by October. But we'd been promoting that record for like 3 years, and then it finally came out, I want to say. You know, and so, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't so, because believe me, it's like now, you know, I'm looking at my computer and I have so many Anti Mortem songs that it was labeled second record, and there's so much of it that's so good that's a big reason as to why it was like, hey, what are we going to do with all this music? You know, so long story short, it wasn't so much that part as it was that we all, for the most part, really didn't get along very well. It was a lot like I would imagine being in like early Metallica or something like that before before David left the band. You know, everyone's really young. We all like to drink a lot. You know, everyone's egos are flared up, and, you know, and then when you get entourage around you of your friends and their friends, and, you know, all of it, there's politics and all of it. And then I will say the music industry is rough and will do things to your friendships and to your interpersonal relationships and money and all that stuff. I mean, not that we ever made a lot of money. It was just, you know, when people start investing lots of money into a group, you know, everybody wants to talk about how that's going to happen or allocate it out or whatever. And, you know, just out of differences on the way things should have gone or could have gone or this or that group and that lineup just it just wasn't cohesive. It was like Guns N' Roses or something, you know what I mean? Just something,
right.
It was a pretty, like, and maybe that made for a really good show a lot of times at night. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it wasn't an explosive energy on stage, which it definitely was. It was just, man, to try to keep that touring together to bust, my God, that was a nightmare sometimes. You know, I can't say I've ever been in a band since that was as difficult to be in. You know, I've been in a lot of bands since that run pretty easily. You know what I mean? So I would just say that I wouldn't blame it on any of the people individually. It was just for all of us. We were all growing up, coming to terms with ourselves. You know, falling in love with alcohol at that time, I'd say, and you know, the road and all that. And it can just be a cocktail for disaster on some nights. You know, so
right.
Anyway,
I mean,
that's what
basically it was. Yeah, it's like you said, the Guns N' Roses, the difference is while Guns had the money and availability to have everyone on separate buses,
yeah,
that's the way the industry was at the time. That wasn't something that was, you know, accessible to you guys, and it was just, basically you guys were a powder keg that eventually went kaboom.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think that by the time that, you know, all of us have been poor for so long and young and, you know, just eating rock and roll every night for dinner, sleeping wherever we could. I mean, we did some rough tours with some rough situations, you know, but we were just so thankful and happy to be living our dream, you know, that one day everyone kind of woke up and was like, you know, God, we've been out here for a while and I can't stand you, you know what I mean? And then and the music was changing a lot then too. That's another thing I think that for me and Rado that was such a big part of it is obviously music since 2014 and 2013 has changed considerably. Mm-hmm. You know, and for me, Cosmic Wool made a lot of sense in that time and still does. I'm not saying we're going to break that band up at all, but to me, alternative music really started to come into this place I really enjoyed. I hadn't really liked alternative music in a long time, and it was something I was digging, and I felt like I looked out in crowds and I saw kind of an aging crowd that was starting to pop up at all these rock shows, these hard rock and metal shows. So I just kind of felt like it wasn't where I wanted to be. And then some time passes and we keep going, and then I see some, some of my peers that we were playing with, like Avatar or whoever, that was like, oh man, these guys are 12-foot ninja. They were like a breath of fresh air. And then it kind of dawned on me. I was like, so was Anti Mortem. Anti Mortem was a breath of fresh air, and it was a good band, so it's something that in the last couple of years I've kind of looked back on fondly the further we've got from it, and the more it kind of motivated me to be like, maybe there's something more to that. Maybe there could be a chapter 2 for that group,
Do you think there was anything that could have saved you guys then, or was it just, it wound up being what it was going to be? Me and Zane really tried that last day to get everybody to get out of the van, and get everything loaded. But, at that same time, Corey, our bass player at the time, had his wife was like 9 months pregnant. He really wanted to be home, and we were about to go to Europe for like a month, and he was going to pretty much miss the birth of his child. And so at first it was, we're going home and Corey's going to go, do that. And we're going to have somebody fill in for Europe and talk about if we want to continue after Europe. And then it was just like, there was no, cause we had crew members that were with us that were pretty heavily involved in the deciding factor of whether or not we were going home or not. So it kind of just got to a point where, like, the last while of that band, me and Rado did not have a lot of say or control of what was going on but we were writing so much of the music, and not to say that not everybody else wasn't working hard and doing what every contributing person should be doing, but we just felt like, for as much as the voice of the band that we were and how much of the music was, we didn't have a lot of say in the group. And so by the end of it, it was just kind of like the Romos versus like whoever didn't disagree with us or however didn't agree with us is how they felt. Basically, they felt like we kind of were, and we didn't have a lot of power, period, which is kind of a reason why I don't even think it really dawned on us to continue the band after it broke up. You know what I mean? It wasn't me and Rado were going to strike out and kick everybody out and keep going. It was like, I guess we just started a new band, you know what I mean? And that's why we did Cosmic Gold that way. So just to answer your question, I really do feel like with that group of guys, I just don't see everybody being able to, who knows? I don't want to say, maybe one day there may be a day where we all get together on stage again with that group of guys, but it was so, like, everybody's in different places now and doing different projects, or, they're in their respective places. And to me, those things make sense. But to me and Rado, though, for us, it makes sense for us to maybe think about, about that second chapter and trying this again for that group. So basically, here we are, and we're at a time where the old guys are going out, and you've got the guys that were around when you guys started, and they're hitting their stride, and here we are at a time where we have the technical things like Amaranth and so on, and then we got guys, the old school sounds like Temperance Movement and Crowbar.
Right, I love those bands, two of my favorite bands.
So, where do you guys see Anti Mortem fitting in regards to what sound is going to be like?
Well, like I said, I felt like at one point that metal was kind of in this kind of like, I don't know, like a waning kind of phase, the way it kind of came into whenever like, the 90s had happened. And it seemed like for a minute that's the way things were going. And then I saw some of our, peers like Avatar and 12-Foot Ninja and stuff, and they were making music I really enjoyed. I found that, I found all these, these bands that I remember touring with, but I'd never listened to because, I was too busy making my own records and stuff. I was like, God, I love this. And it made me kind of realize, holy crap, Anti Mortem was the same way. That was that same group class of bands that, I felt like that was the next line of bands to kind of carry the torch for some of these guys that, like you said, are hitting their stride, and they're kind of getting to that marker where they're at the 25-year marker for some of their successful records, or 20-year marker and things like that. And, so to me, there's this huge spot vacancy open up for Anti Mortem where it's like, the moment we picked up and started playing THC again, I was like, okay, I kind of got a taste for heavy music again. And I was like, okay, I can't just I started wanting to do it again, and by that I mean getting on stage and being crazy and running around and because don't get me wrong, Cosmical is like a certain type of thing that we do that it takes a lot of effort to really hone in and you kind of, it's a lot more listening on our ends and trying to really be delicate with our playing and really pay attention. And with Anti Mortem, it's a very much just I don't know how to put it. It's like a ritualistic dance on stage or something obnoxious like that. You just kind of let go and just go, and you end up where you end up an hour later. And I missed it. And so to me, I see they're needing that kind of, kick in the ass again to rock and metal. And so, I'll be honest with you, the band is, for us to do this again, we're not really in a position to do this again, if that makes sense. When a band breaks up like that and you owe money and, people own names and good Lord, I don't even know what the hell is coming to us. But I'll tell you this, I know to me it feels metal as fuck to just go ahead and do it. So that's why we decided, we were like, all right, damn the consequences. Let's just go ahead and with that same spirit the music was played, retake the band back and see what happens. So that's what our plan is.
So do you guys, I don't know if you can, I limited to discuss it, and I don't want you to put anything out there if you can, but does the label own the name? Is there, how many hang-ups are there?
Let's put it this way. I'll try to say this as delicately as I can. There are a lot of hang-ups to this whole situation. I haven't gotten anywhere. Because let's put it this way. I'll say what we have done. What we have done is we've been rehearsing for about 2 months now and put together a new group of guys and a new lineup. Me and Reno, and at this point, I think it's okay for me to go ahead and out to it is. I've got Timmy from THC playing with us on drums, and then a guy named Andy Hopkins who played the band called Sieve Addiction. They toured with Saliva and some other groups a few years ago. He's got another band called St. Monroe he's with, and then the bass, our original bass player, and before Corey, a guy named Colby Thompson. He's also played with Waylon Jennings' son. So long story short, we've got a really good group of guys. We've been rehearsing, and then I put together we put together a show that's going to happen February 9th in Oklahoma City, and we are putting together some new music and all of that, and we put together a new Facebook page. So my point being, that's what we've done. Now, I haven't heard a response yet to any of that, and the show's on February 9th. So I may be putting more of my cards on the table than I should be, but you and I are good friends, don't really care, and it just kind of is the situation that it is. And to me, I feel like it's kind of the spirit of rock and roll, really. You know what I mean? It's kind of the spirit of metal, the situation that it is. So that's why we kind of decided, we were like, damn the consequences. The worst. I know that there are legal implications probably that could come from this, but I still feel like I've seen people, Prince got himself in a similar situation, and so did John Cougar Mellencamp. So we just kind of thought we would make the first move and see what happens next.
Right. Well, we do live in a day and age where social media is out there. So it's not like, years ago before social media, where if you did a show as Anti Mortem, it would take months for the label to find out.
Yeah.
Because they would have to go by word of mouth and phone calls. Mm-hmm. We live in a day and age where you would think, and again, I don't want to jinx anything, but
I know.
You would think that the necessary people that might need to contact you would have done so.
Yeah, so I put out some artwork and about 3 months ago, and made a Facebook page for Anti Mortem again, and I dropped the hyphen, And so it's a different Facebook page. Anyway, and so, and I put some artwork out, and said, basically put hashtag can't kill this, and, said, stay tuned. We appreciate your continued support. There's a chapter 2 coming, something to that effect. And that was probably 2 or 3 months ago. And then, so we kind of started talking about it, and, we put together a lineup and started practicing, and lo and behold, I decided, we're like, all right, let's put a show together. And so now, we announced the show, put pre-sale tickets together, and tickets are selling for the show, and I have yet to hear anything yet. So I can't imagine someone not, and I've done probably, like I said, this is probably my second or third interview I've done at this point, so, like I'm kind of where you're at, where I'm kind of like, all right, it's the 21st century. Somebody has to have Facebook.
Well, I would think. And, I give you guys credit also for going the rock and roll, the metal route, because, we've seen it before. Like you mentioned, John Cougar, Mellencamp, and others. The bands break up, and then they decide, even 10 years later, to get back together, and the label owns everything, or the way it was broken up, somebody that no longer is living owns it, and no who owns what rights anymore, and they just say, fuck it, we'll make a new name, but we'll play the old stuff.
Right, exactly.
Or like Black Star Riders did.
Yep.
They're Thin Lizzy, but they're not enough of Thin Lizzy to still go under that name.
And I can't blame them for that, them not having Phil in it. I mean, to me, like, I can see them in that position. But to me, though, with it being Rado being the vocalist, and the vocalist is still there, I was pretty much one of the main writers in the band. I mean, I wrote everything that basically Zane didn't, and we started the group without Zane for probably 3 to 4 years before he got in. So, I mean, really, it was the three of us that were the ones that did, most of the writing. And so to me, I felt like I was like, man, if Thin Lizzy went through that change with guitar players and, Fleetwood Mac, I was just like, because more than anything, and I'll tell you, this is the reason that this group is getting back together, is the people. The people that followed us are some of the best people on earth, and some of those diehard individuals that have been, like, they've been asking for this for so long. And finally, I don't know, it just felt wrong to just turn our backs on these people for so long. And so I was like, damn the consequences. We'll see what happens. I want to get all these people together and have a good night, and just see what that feels like to, be like, hey, we're all still here. Let's do this again one more time, and it's not honestly, it's not really a one more time. There's a lot on the table with this group. And like you said, though, there's a lot of sticky tape here, and it's a pretty interesting situation, so, I haven't been, like I said, I haven't been really contacted by anybody, but this is also still pretty fairly new, so we'll see what happens. We shall see what happens.
Now, going forward with it, let's go on, guys, it will be Anti Mortem. You will have the access to the first album of material, because you guys are pretty much the ones that wrote it and did everything with it. Are you guys going to revisit any of that, or are you guys going to do kind of like In This Moment did, when they reinvented themselves, they skipped and almost ignored their early albums, like they never happened? Are you guys gonna, is this basically, all right, same name, similar sound, but forget the old album?
No, I wouldn't say that, actually. I mean, because right now what we decided to do, instead of, like, a lot of bands maybe would wait to come out until they put a new record out, we kind of decided to do it differently. We were like, we want to do a show is what we want to do more than anything. We don't really, I mean, I've wrote freaking umpteenth records this last year. You know what I mean? I mean, as not only am I in the groups I'm in, I also do a lot of ghostwriting with people, and I end up, helping produce other people's bands, and I produce on my own. So I spend a lot of time in the studio, and I spend a lot of time on the road, but Oklahoma City is my home. I love that place. And there's a lot of other places, Dallas and Denver and stuff. There's a lot of places I love to play that, feel really close to home, especially with that group. So we said we want to play a show. And so with that, it comes a lot of expectation of what do I hear at that show, so to me, yes, we're writing new material. Obviously that's going on. I mean, we've got, I've got, all kinds of songs we've been working on. We've got folders and folders of them. But, I realized, though, the people that are showing up, for everybody, this is kind of a sigh of relief. So everybody wants to hear, everything that, that had happened up to that point before the album. Everybody wants to hear the album. And then obviously we've got some new songs we want to play, but just the same way that if Anti Mortem would have, not broke up, but just said, hey, we're going to take a break for a little bit and then put a new record out. THC put a record out, I think, in like 2016 or 2015, I want to say even. It's now 2019 and we're about to put, or 2018, we're about to put our new record out this coming year, and so, a lot of bands sometimes take a little bit more time. And so to me, this is just that next show that never happened, really. I mean, we had new songs we were working on then, and we were playing songs that were, not on our record at the time because they were older than the record. And we played a lot of stuff we liked off the record. We skipped some stuff we hated off the record, so to me, there's not anything that's out of bounds with this band, and there's no trying to be like, oh, this old sound was terrible. I mean, obviously music's changed and that's going to reflect in our music. I mean, that I can't help. I mean, I can't help that I use different programs or different, this or that now than I did before. A lot of the stuff's still similar, but, most of the stuff a lot of this at this point, we've got different gear and all that kind of stuff. So it will be different, but at the same time, there's no intention to stay away from what it is that made people love that band, which is those songs, you know what I mean? So definitely we have every intention of playing, the stuff off of New Southern and stuff before that and some stuff after it too.
Well, I mean, that's good. Like I said, I would do in this moment, Stan, I would love for them to kind of give that just once and play that early stuff.
Yeah, THC played with them this last year, actually. Rado got to be pretty good friends with their bass player and guitar player, I think. They're really good guys. I know what you mean. They definitely are drastically different than they were when, I remember they came out, it was like God Forbid was really big, and Lacuna Coil and stuff, and they were kind of more in that, I feel like maybe metalcore kind of place or something like that. And it's definitely taken a turn, but they're probably more relative now than they've ever been, so for them, I totally can understand why. But I know what you mean. For me, that's I definitely see new parameters and new ideas for Anti Mortem, but in the same way that, I feel like at that time, 2014 is not that long ago. I mean, that was still, that was just 4 years ago or so. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot has changed. But I still feel that it's like when you listen, like I said, like Avatar is still a great heavy band. They're not really heavily relying on a lot of sampling or this or that. For the most part, it's all guitars and the theatrics of their show. And so to me, when you see that says that there's still, in essence, it's still the same thing it always was. They just found a really good, unique way to address it. And to me, so I don't feel like, for us, I don't feel like us making I think we're going to make like some complete insane, crazy left or right turn. I think to me, our kind of idea with all this was just, like I said, if we were putting a new record out, and that was what we were going to do was, hey, we're putting a new record out first. That'd been one thing. And, we probably would have been really all about the new stuff. But right, like I said, right now, our goal was more to do a show. And then, obviously THC is very busy this year. We're putting a new record out. We don't intend to pull any less effort out of Cosmical or THC. But I know that I wanted to see what happened, stir the pot up and because at the same time, there will be time this year for us to do quite a few things. And, so if time permits and everything works out the way we're hoping it will, we're hoping to put out a new recording in 2019 for Anti Mortem, some tour dates, the whole 9 yards, just going to be kind of on the time scale that, we decide to, instead of, having someone whip us into shape and do exactly as we say, as they say to do. So with that kind of freedom and ability to determine ourselves. I mean, it just kind of makes it seem like one of the funnest I've ever done in my life. And it's been nothing but a blast ever since we've even started to try to do this again. The group of guys we're playing with, I mean, it's all smiles and beer and whiskey. You know what I mean? So it's been.
At the end of the day, when it's all over and done with, you guys got to be able to walk away as friends.
Yes.
Whether they stay a member of Anti Mortem or they move on, you want to still remain on a friendship. Too many bands over the years, members leave and it got nasty. Yeah, we've seen it over and over again, and we're tired of it. Even as fans, as musicians, everyone's tired of, I don't like you anymore, fuck you.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, that's, I mean, we hit everybody. It wasn't that like we decided to keep everybody out by any means at all. I mean, me and Rado for the last, Rado's been very unresponsive to the idea for the last, he probably didn't get into it until probably maybe 6 months ago. I was the one that was like, oh man, we gotta try to make everything cool with everybody and blah, blah, blah. And, I want to talk to everybody again and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, shut up, leave it alone, blah, 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 and so that's how I always work with, me and him, always that person, like, come on, let's try this, Rado. Anyway, and so I hit everybody up, and I still talk to Corey, but Corey's got himself in an odd legal situation right now that he's not able to participate with us. But I imagine if he could, he would be probably participating with us. But I love Corey to death. Levi Dickerson is in Every Panic and stays super busy with that. I hit him up last year about it. He didn't really seem too excited about the idea. So whenever we started thinking about it again this year, I didn't really think it would make a lot of sense to him up again. And then I've tried to contact Zane Smith for probably 2 years or something like that, no avail. I can't get him to respond to me at all, so I mean, I just would like to put it out there if anybody wants to think that this is some malicious attempt for us to try to, kick everyone out and get rid of everybody. It has nothing to do with that. If they would have wanted to have something to do with it, we probably would have talked, but more than anything for us, this is about the people that follow this band. And so, I feel that we owe it to those people to put together a lineup that's worth watching, that's very talented, and that can really hold their own, and to try to give people what they can come to see and entertain them, you know what I mean? So, I'm really excited about this group of guys we've put together.
So, I mean, it's good to hear. I was excited when I got the invite to the new page for Anti Mortem. As I said, I remember with you guys when that album came out. I remember hearing it. I remember buying it. I remember being one of those people. I was only a couple of years into doing radio and doing this at the time. I mean, I've been doing it since '09. So, yeah, I was still young in the industry. And I remember speaking with you for Anti Mortem, and it was you guys are the future, and we'll see each other for years going. And then it was like, oh, shit. But then, thankfully, we continued the Cosmic Wall in Texas Hippie, and now the return of Anti Mortem, and I look forward to it all, man.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, it's at this point, at one time it was a lot of stress and a lot of expectation, this and that, and hoping to not fail those expectations, and trying to get along. And right now, it's nothing but good times. You know what I mean? It's just been the kind of a hopeful kind of a thing. Is what's going to happen? Even with everything we talked about a minute ago. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of legal implications, I'm sure, that could follow from all of it. But at the same time, all things considered, I mean, it just feels like a really fun kind of middle finger thing to do to somebody, so sometimes you just got to do that, that's just the way it is. So if somebody would like to say anything about the matter, I'm sure they can find me online.
Easier. You can't say it any easier than that, man. I mean, look, you did your due diligence. It's not like like you said, you're not doing this to fuck anyone over. It's about the fans at the end of the day that are still with you guys, that missed that album, that wanted more, and that's what it's about, giving those fans what they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's exactly it. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, this really is about those people. I mean, they, you know, I got with Texas Hippie Coalition. You know, Anti Mortem went on tour with THC, and that year was really good for both bands because both of us had just done a record with Bob Marlette. Both of us got Billboard hits, so there was a lot of, you know, we had some pretty similar crowd that kind of all hung out together, and you know, so a lot of those people, when I go play THC shows, because when I went and did Cosmo Cool shows, I didn't see a lot of those people anymore, really, because Cosmo Cool was just so, you know, drastically different that, you know, I was in a really different scene. So naturally, when we got to the THC shows again, everyone's like, hey, I know who you are. You're that dude for this band or this band or that band. I saw you with them. And, little by little, it just kind of got to the point where, we just realized that, you know, I was going to be signing Anti Mortem CDs for the rest of my life, you know, and that's to this day. I go out on tour and I talk to people, you know, people will tell me this or that, or, you know, talk to me about that group. And I just could see that, you know, I don't know how many bands I love, you know, and I'm sure you're the same way, that you're like, God, I just wish Mudvayne would put another record out. You know what I mean? God, I love Mudvayne so much. Why will Mudvayne not? I've asked Chad Gray before. He wasn't very happy about it, you know, and for a while I was the same way. Or if you asked me about Anti Mortem, I would, you know, I'd just kind of, you know, give you a weird sigh and not want to talk about it. And, so I thought to myself, once the moment I, you know, felt a little bit of energy to think about it and kind of felt like it could be something worth doing. I was like, we got to do this, man. I mean, this would make so many people happy. And then it did. I put it out online, and good Lord. So, I mean, there was very little negative reaction to it. You know what I mean? So it felt like the right thing to do. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, we're not out here to try to screw anybody over, this or that, you know, more than anything. It just has to do with the fact that, you know, this seems right to do. And so, you know, therefore we're going to do it. See what happens. So.
Well, I look forward to it. That show coming up February 9th. The new Anti Mortem Facebook. There's a hyphen in the middle. You will find it. Check it out. Go like it. Dude, Nevada, thank you for the time to do this. And I did something up. I'll play the title track from New Southern right now, if that sounds good to you.
I think so, man. I appreciate it, dude. We always love talking to you, Turbo, and you always supported me and Ray on everything we've done. So thank you so much for your time, man.
My pleasure, as always, right there. Anti Mortem, New